You got the hook. Oh man.
Oh, that was the longest introduction ever. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, we forgot to put the light on the video thingy.
Oh no!
There's that.
Oh no! Let me here.
Well, I'm concerned because it looks like a ghost behind you.
Yeah, and I already look like a pale ass white
No
person.
judgment on white people.
I tried to put a bit of makeup this morning to see if that would help.
Oh jeez.
Ah.
Okay. It's a little better, but we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
You look lovely.
Well, thank you. I washed. I'm just letting the world know on video I washed.
You took a shower today. Yeah, it's impressive.
Well, because I want to control my body odor.
Don't try to control it, Mike. Don't try to control it. This is what this season is all about. You do you.
Because when you're recording in a basement studio with no ventilation,
up close and personal,
it's hard to control your body odor.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yes.
But yes. So rigidity is not an option, huh?
Yes. Yeah. So that came up. Oh God, when did that? I think we were planning an episode, and I just said that, and you were like, wait. Say it again.
Rigidity is not an option. Yes.
And so the idea behind that is, I have realized this year, becoming a nomad, traveling, coming back to the States, figuring out the next steps of our lives, I've sort of figured out that what I consider to be like the ideal schedule and how I should perform work and what that looks like in terms of my mental health has to be flexible. It's not just the schedule itself, it's my attitude towards it. Really. Because
we're recording this?
I think so.
I'm gonna play this back for you. Okay.
Yes, we are recording this. I'm just like, I have to chat.
Play this clip back to
you.
No,
it's true, because I would just get so frustrated because every time we moved houses, it felt like I was starting from the beginning. It felt like I had to ease into a new routine. I had to figure out, going out for long walks again. When am I going to do that? What's that going to look like? A new office space. I just got really frustrated, and I just realized that I was just approaching this the wrong. I was expecting things to be the same every single time, and that's just not realistic. And also, and I should know this by now. I should know this after what? Let's see, I went to therapy in 2016, so after 6 years of therapy on and off, and then like 15 plus years with all the fun stuff going on, you'd think I would have picked up on this by now, that I have to be more flexible than I am, but it seems like a lesson that constantly needs to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just in a different place day to day. That I've nailed. That, my anxiety and depression can just kind of manifest in different ways and show up in different ways and look different day to day to day to day. But that's the way I look at mental health in my business, the way I have to approach it, will shift depending on where I am. Will shift depending on where I am, who I'm with, the landscape, the routine that I can manage based on my mental health. So that was just kind of an interesting. It's a long sort of rambling explanation for that. Sorry, but that's where that came from.
No, and so we're using this word control, and I'll be honest, I don't have my notes from yesterday in front of me. What's the definition of control?
The definition of control.
Can you read your notes, because I don't have mine?
Because being the external control freak that I am, I always have my notes.
And I'm go with the flow, whatever I got.
He's like, it's all in my head, it's fine. So Webster's dictionary definition of control, or of the verb control. So to control means to exercise restraining or directing influence over, or to have power over, which I feel like is the key, is that retaining power of a situation, of a person, of a relationship, of a circumstance. It could be power over a lot of yourself, So, and we mentioned this a bit in the trailer, where we sort of realized that we are both control freaks, just kind of different kinds of control freaks. So we try to exercise power over our surroundings in different ways. For me, it's more like spreadsheets, systems, getting things done on time, going to places on time, waking up on time, having a schedule that I follow. And then with you do that too, but when we work together, it's very much like I'm very much the more uptight one who's trying to maintain like a schedule and have a checklist. And you're a bit more laid back, like, yeah, we'll get to it, it'll be fine. Like, I trust, like, oh my god, he does this thing, it's so annoying. I trust you.
Oh
Like,
my gosh,
oh,
yes.
fucking thanks for that. I'll just put that on my to-do list,
The,
shall I?
the triggering words. I trust you, you
I
know?
trust you.
And with that note, you know, at the same time, I mean, this morning I was meditating for 20 minutes and I have a little meditation timer, making sure it stays at 20 minutes. That's a form of control right there. But, you know, for me, I control things internally in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to control my emotions. Like, oh God, I was feeling some, which I didn't tell you, but depression, I guess, this morning, and sadness, and maybe some anger around some work-related things. And, you know, I said to myself, well, I got to control these emotions because I got to go record a podcast and shoot some video with Leanna.
Yeah, I'm on a deadline, so this has to
Right.
be taken care of.
So I had to mentally, I'd said some affirmations. That was my form of using control. I did my affirmations, and I don't know, I guess I kind of felt better. Also, I had coffee at the same time. Maybe it was that coffee.
That could have been it. That could have been it.
We're getting a weird sound.
I think it might be a chord thing. Should we pause the...
No, Chris will hear it. Hold on. Who's causing the sound?
I think it's you.
It's not there anymore.
Yeah. But then the audio isn't...
We're just going to splice them together. Recording a separate track. It's okay. So let's try that. We'll keep going here. Is the sound there? Where'd the sound go?
See, it...
Okay, hold on. And if you're watching this, you're getting to hear our whole...
process, sort of.
This is what goes on behind the scenes.
This is real behind the scenes content. This is quality content right now. It stopped.
It stopped.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're hearing this funky sound. We're trying to control it, you know. Hey, at the end of the day, if it's going to be a little bit in there, I think we'll work with it.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
We'll work with it. So, sorry, we're back here with you, and what are we talking about?
Well, control. But you were talking about your morning and affirmations.
So yeah, you know, I was doing these affirmations, and the affirmations are good. I recommend people do affirmations. Self-talk, what you say to yourself, right, can affect your mental state. And it got me in a slightly better mood. That was really the goal, is not to like change what was going on, but just get me in a slightly better place, which made me feel like I had a little victory and was was good. And talk about control right now mentally. This is actually a real moment here on the podcast. So I'm listening to, we have headphones on if you're just listening to this. And I'm a musician. I hear everything, every little sound. And we're getting this like annoying sound out of my...
Like buzzing.
Yeah. And so here I am mentally trying to speak on the podcast right here with you, right? Do our show and control the sound and go, what is going on? So you're actually getting to witness in real time control issues happening.
And I think
it.
this is a good question to ask our audience. In what way do you try to control things? Take a moment to think about that. You know, it could be external, like me, where you sort of try to kind of how do I say, try to kind of mold what's going on around you and like condense it into spreadsheets and all that. Or like Mike, you could be sort of the inner control freak, where you're sort of outwardly like laid back and chill and calm, but inside there's a lot going on and you're working really hard to manage that. So I mean, and that, I'm sure those are not the only two types of control, but those are the ones we're working with at the moment. So think about that. Like, where do you fall? Like, what's going on there for you?
Yep.
Um,
And we're going to be talking about control versus
yeah.
management and
So,
what the difference is. I'm leaving the headphones on for you. You're not hearing the sound anymore?
no, I
Good.
don't think
We'll
so.
keep going like that. So, what is management?
Management. So, I mean, you're welcome to read. You're welcome to read
Because
off
I
of
don't
my
have my
notes
notes
here.
because I'm the go with the flow one. So I'll give
You've
it to
got your
the.
notes right
But
there.
I just have management. I just have defined.
Oh, you didn't print. Okay, you didn't print the news version out. Okay, so management is the coordination and administration of tasks to achieve a goal. So as an example, and this is sort of a combination of control and management, really. Distinctly remember one phone call where I was talking with you and Krisa, I believe, and we were talking about Asana,
Uh-oh.
and I was a bit frustrated because Mike does this thing where he's like mentally hands things off to people, and then I don't really know where he's at in a project. So I was like, Mike, can you just please check off stuff in Asana as you go? That would be great. And I was a bit brusque. I think came off a bit strong there. I think those were actually words. Mike says I come off a bit strong sometimes, so he pointed that out to me, and I was literally managing the situation, probably micromanaging the situation, but it's also my way of exerting control over, well, Mike, really, over you.
Well, can I argue that I was actually trying to get control in a way too? Because
Yeah.
so, by the way, for those of you that don't know, Asana is a task management software, and the cool thing about it is people in a project can check off tasks, and everyone else can see how everyone's doing. So there's management happening there. It's not control software; it's task management software. And we have different projects in my company, and I'll be honest, I'm not the best at using Asana and staying on top of it. And the reality is that hurts a project if people are looking to see, well, what's done on my end. And so, I just don't use it like I should. And so that was, I'm sure, very frustrating. But also part of it's probably control on my end because I look at Asana and go, why do I have to check off these stupid tasks? Like, I don't need to tell anybody what I'm doing. That's the rebel in me. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So bad boy of you.
The two of us. Oh, gosh.
And this like segues really well into what we're trying to kind of getting to the point of the episode is what control has to do with mental health and business. And to me, the answer is simple: everything. Everything, because to me, mental health is all about management versus control.
Mm, it is. And, one of the lessons that I've had to learn about this is I deal with anger, I deal with depression. And for years, let's just take anger. I wanted to control it. Because especially when you're younger, the emotion will take over you and you think you are the emotion. You think you are. I thought I was anger. That's all I knew. People are like, well, you need to separate yourself from your anger. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not even possible. And I realized for me, for years, I was trying to control that anger because it felt like I always go back to the analogy of the Incredible Hulk. Just took over and became this monster. And what I've had to learn is that it's probably impossible to control emotions. I know some people might disagree with that, but you can manage them. You can learn to work with them. And that's something that I had to learn about my mental health. And control is oftentimes escaping things, but sometimes we need to escape. Again, this morning I had to do some affirmations to get myself in a good place so I could record and deal with all the challenges that are coming up with recording. But sometimes it's distracting, and we all do that for our own mental health. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, I think I'm coming at it more from a place of fear than anger. So to give a bit of background, I have PTSD, and I've had it for coming up on 10 years now, possibly longer if you include complex PTSD. Sorry, my stomach growled just then. I'm not sure if the mic picked that up. So
Your stomach growls on the recording. Oh, we have all sorts of
oh my gosh,
lovely sound effects.
I'm so hungry. I can't wait to have breakfast. So for me, the control versus management came in. So I had PTSD from an assault in college, and I think at that point in my life, at that point in my mental health, as the PTSD it was late onset PTSD, so it took a while to kind of get going. But once it was sort of starting to get firmly embedded in my psyche, I found it kind of taking control over my life more and more. So it wasn't just I had this thing happen, this is how I feel about it. It was because this thing happened, I can do this and cannot do this.
Mm.
You know, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was dealing with stuff like being unable to leave the house, you know, being unable to walk outside because people walking up behind me was really traumatic. Being unable to travel, like all of this stuff, you know, nightmares and flashbacks and just all sorts of things. It really kind of took over, and it became kind of the biggest part of my identity, kind of like you with anger, where it was just like the one thing defined you. And then when I finally got help for it, just like way later than I should have, like 4 years later, um, it was still about control, because it was me trying to kind of I mean, I needed help. That was a healthy thing to feel, a healthy thing to recognize that I needed help and get it. But it was also me still trying to control the PTSD and the depression and the anxiety. And so I sort of kind of see it as kind of before therapy, kind of in the middle, like early therapy where I'm still in crisis, and after. And then my journey with healing, with therapy, has been recognizing the difference between control and management. And by that I mean recognizing that for me it's more about management, more about working with what's there, and still trying to be the best version of myself, but recognizing that the best version of myself probably still has PTSD and depression. And embracing that as just part of my personality. Part is the key, not my entire personality or identity, but part of my personality. I'm not a victim of an assault. I'm a survivor, and that's a small part of who I am. You know, I'm a survivor and 1,000 other things. You know, I'm a birth mother, I'm a podcast host, I'm a writer, I'm all these things. And because I work in the mental health kind of field in terms of writing and podcasting now, it's becoming sort of a slightly bigger part of my identity, but it's still sort of in its own corner. So my experience really has been, rather than controlling it or sort of fixing my mental health, has been working alongside it and with it and embracing it to a certain extent. So, and I think you said something great about, was it a therapist you had who said something about how the story doesn't change?
Right. One of my mentors and therapists, John Terrell, basically said to me through when I was going through a difficult time, a very difficult time, that eventually, you know, we all have stories that we carry with us. And sometimes those stories rule us. They take over our lives, and we think it's our identity. But the story will always be there, but you get yourself to a point where the story's not controlling you like it used to. So you're able to tell that story and say, this happened, or this is, you know, how I see the world sometimes, but it's not controlling you. And I just want to say, a little situation happened last week that I don't want to go into too much detail about, but let's just say this. Brought up a lot of anger with me. And for years, it was controlling me. If this trigger came up, I would be angry for days. I would be unable to focus. But last week, the trigger happened.
Oh, dear.
And I paused and used a lot of my tools. I felt the feelings, felt my feelings, said I'm not going to try to control it, and was very clear on what I needed to do. And let me just go on to a tangent here about anger. Anger, a lot of times in my experience, is your power being taken away. And it's an external demonstration of power. And a lot of times what people don't realize about anger is that the key to dealing with it is figuring out a way to take your power back, whatever that is. And so basically to this particular trigger, which was a person that reached out to me, I had to say no. And one of the other things I learned from John Terrell is when you're able to say no and stand in your power, you're also saying yes to something else in your life that you want. And so being able to put my foot down with this person in a loving way, I wasn't rude or anything, and just confront it, I realized like the anger quickly dissipated. It was pretty magical. And I started to actually feel like kind of on top of the world in a weird way in a very short amount of time. I wasn't trying to control the anger. I was trying to work with it and manage it.
Yeah, but you also learned from it, didn't you?
Oh
Like,
my
he was telling you
gosh.
something really important, which is, you got to deal with the situation because this is not like, we do not like this. This is a problem for a reason. Handle it. And you
Handle
did
it.
it in a good, healthy way, which
Yeah.
is fabulous. So I think it's sort of, it can be a signal, a
Yes.
very big red flag signal that things have to be taken care of. And that's fabulous. And sort of kind of another question to ask yourself at this point is, what are you how do you define your approach to this? Do you consider yourself a manager? Do you consider yourself a control freak? Why do you use those terms? Like, how are you approaching these situations in your own life? And then do you need to are these things that you maybe need to let go of? Are these things that you have to kind of stare in the face and say, okay, what can I learn from this? What is this telling me? What do I need to do about this so that you can be more effective, you can manage it more effectively? And I really do prefer the term management to control, because it, to me, it indicates kind of you're moving forward in a positive way, where I see control as kind of the stagnant, like tightly scrunched up space. Yeah, like where you're not going anywhere with it. You're just kind of holding it there with you. You know what I mean? You're like holding
Yeah.
onto it tightly. Whereas management, I kind of see as like it's moving in a direction. That's kind
It's
of
moving in a direction.
mentally.
Well, I want to reiterate, ask yourself the question in any situation: am I being a manager or a control freak?
Mm.
Now, here's the thing, there's no right or wrong answer. The answer to one for you might be different for me. And the key is to remember it's a delicate dance.
Mm.
For example, on my team where I lead, sometimes I want something done, but I want it done exactly a certain way in my head.
Mm-hmm.
This font, in this format. And I have to ask myself,
Is it not cool? Do you think I come about the poll, maybe?
can you tell them to?
Yeah. It's so weird how much louder it is.
It's Danelle. Trust me.
I guess they went outside?
Who was it?
A neighbor, I think.
Oh,
Really dark hair.
Christine. Gotta put a sign on the door for her. She gives us bread and stuff,
Oh, that's nice.
and that's all gonna be on video. Oh, we might have to take that out.
Well, the trials and tribulations of recording a podcast with multiple people upstairs.
Okay.
Right. Back.
Okay, you ready?
Yes. So where were we? Obviously, that was a situation we couldn't control, so we
Yeah.
we did our best. So I think, so there's a good question to ask yourself, but also taking it a step further, trying to identify the source of the emotion you're feeling. So trying to figure out what's really going on. So we've talked about this before in a few different episodes, I think in season 1. But we each have our own methods of tracking down and identifying emotions. And for me, I call it a gut check. And that's something I learned as I was... please don't do that.
Oh, sorry, I was making a sound on my pants.
You distracted me. So gut checks, and I learned about gut checks during a birth parent seminar where I was working on kind of figuring out grief and loss and what that felt like and different ways that manifested. And one thing that one of the workshop coordinators suggested is to listen to your gut when you feel something and ask it questions like, is it work? Is it relationships? Is it something to do with my husband? Is it, and I'm sort of speaking that from my own experience rather than what's happening in the adoption seminar, because I've kind of taken my own approach to it. But essentially, I use that when I'm really anxious or my mood just drops like a stone and I feel like I'm heading into a depressive slump, or I'm having a panic attack for what seems like no reason, which means PTSD is kicking up. And if I don't immediately know why, that is when I start asking those questions. So oftentimes I get like a gut clench, just a little like squeeze or a little like ache, and that kind of tells me what's
Can I geek out on you for a second here?
Yeah.
Is it actually in your solar plexus that you feel it?
It feels like more, I guess, lower. So it might be like lower than my stomach. So it feels like more like maybe abdomen.
So basically, where you feel a gut check can be different for every person.
Mm-hmm.
I know I feel it more in my solar plexus. Some people feel it in their heart.
Yeah, so like a chest type.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you ask yourself a question: is this the right or wrong thing? Mm-hmm. And your body will tell you the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's pretty accurate too. The key is whether you're going to listen to that or not.
Yeah, that's just persisting.
That sound?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not me. I pulled this out.
Yeah.
Shit.
I can still hear it.
Okay. Hold on here. There's something going on that's making it. That's not me then. There's something giving us extra feedback into the mic.
Couldn't be one of the no.
I hope it's not the light. My skin's looking real good. All right, let's go with it. We'll listen to it after. I'll do some listening to it. Talk about a choppy episode. This is gonna be interesting. This is gonna be real bad or real good. So let's keep going with gut checks.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I've learned to take it from what I learned with adoption, which was how to identify grief, because you can feel grief so many different ways, right? It can come as depression, as fear, as anger, lots and lots of different things. And so learning to isolate where that is, and as Mike was saying, it can show up in different places of your body depending on where you are. I just say gut because that's kind of where I feel it. It could be like tightening of your chest. It could be a head, it could be like a pain behind your eye. Like, I don't know, but he feels it in his solar plexus. So I think it works differently for everyone. Mm-hmm. But essentially, you're trying to get your body to tell you what the source of you're sort of playing 20 questions with your own body, and it often works quite well. But you have to kind of get into the habit of listening to it, I think, is the thing, and that can sort of take time and patience. And that's similar to your method, I think.
Well, in a previous episode, I'm trying to figure out which episode it was that we did. I talked about the 3 questions to ask yourself throughout the day. You can ask yourself right now, what am I feeling? Mm-hmm. Where is it located? And what do I need right now? And especially as you're running a business, this is very important because we're dealing with conversations and meetings and all different things coming at us from all different directions. So having a moment just to check in with yourself, just to pause and do that is good. And it'll give you some guidance for what's going on in that moment. You know what I mean? You might realize that you're in a situation where you're trying to exhibit control because the person you're dealing with is reminding you of one of your parents. So, things like that are a golden opportunity to learn about yourself and become more effective as a business leader.
I love that. And really, just to kind of wrap up, we're talking about control versus management. We're talking about our goal with this season really is to kind of isolate what you can and cannot control, and then kind of dig into what you can control and how to, more to me, manage it in a healthier way. So things that you can't control: the pandemic, the economy, wars, other people.
The weird sound on the
The weird
recorder.
buzzing sound on the recorder that we cannot seem to figure out. Things that you can control slash manage, which is my preferred word, is your business to a certain extent, your finances, again, to a certain extent, your reactions, I didn't say emotions, reactions, and the choices you make of, all of the above. So I think we both agree that you cannot really fully control your thoughts or emotions. And that is, I think, sort of a controversial thing, because I think some people
sell that in
some people in the mental health world. I think.
And the self-help world say,
Yeah.
you need to control your thoughts first, and then you control everything else. Again, to an extent, you can. I don't think it's an absolute.
Mm-hmm.
To an extent. So the key is to figure out where maybe you can control your thoughts and maybe where you can't. Maybe that's a better thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's certain areas of life, if I say think about a hamburger, you start thinking about a hamburger, or maybe you have the discipline to not think about that, but other things, your thoughts are out of control for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the key is to remember that oftentimes we can't control our thoughts.
But we can learn from them.
Oh.
We can work on knowing ourselves better, how we react, how our emotions play out, how our body reacts to those emotions, and take lessons from them, kind of like you did with your anger and I do with my fear, and try and move them forward in a healthy direction. Just because you don't like the emotion, which we really don't, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means it's trying to tell you something, and usually it's something really important, even if it's really, really loud, because I think that's the thing with mental health issues, is your emotions are just kind of really loud, like screaming at you.
They take over. Like I said, they take over, and I agree with you. And one thing we've talked about before, anger, grief, and fear are some great teachers, and they come up a lot, especially for us business owners. Anger, grief, and fear. And I wanted to just remind you that in 12-step programs across the world, they have this thing they do called the Serenity Prayer, which is written by a man named Reinhold Niebuhr, and basically it says,
You're doing it again.
Basically it's, well, you know what? I'm doing the thing on my pants. It says, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the
courage to
change the things I can, and the wisdom
to know the difference."
Yes, and for example, I have this tendency to, I don't know if any of you can hear that. It's like a DJ sound, like
wicka wicka wicka.
Yes, so I'm making DJ sounds on my thigh here for some reason. It's so strange, right? This is not on camera. No one can see this. But the thing is, that's something I can change. We need to just have my hands like here during future recordings. But that's something to think about. So when it comes to control versus management, it's really important to just gain better awareness around what's going on. I think that's really the theme here today, is taking the opportunity to focus on yourself, to center yourself just for a few seconds, and asking yourself, am I trying to control or am I trying to manage? And what's really going on here?
And just going back to that serenity prayer, it's not a religious prayer. You don't even need to pray it. I think it's a good point that there are things that the wisdom really comes from knowing where to place these different things, whether you can control them, if you should, and how. And there's so many 12-step programs out there. I think there is actually a mental health, like Alcoholics Anonymous type thing.
Yes.
What is it?
It's called Emotions Anonymous, and we'll have a link for you in the show notes.
Yeah.
And it's a free program. Anyone can join. You can just look it up at emotionsanonymous.org. And it takes basically the 12 steps that were proven to be so successful in Alcoholics Anonymous and brought them to the world of mental health, which is pretty really cool. Neat. So no matter what it is, maybe you just struggle with feeling overwhelmed. Maybe it's major depressive disorder. Maybe it's schizophrenia. Emotions Anonymous is one of the many support groups that are out there and really helpful for a lot of people.
Nice. Well, I think that's a great way to end the episode, really, with a great resource. So thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of the second season of Bettermental. We'll have a lot more of control, on control. Next time we'll be talking about, can you really control your emotions? We've sort of answered that, but we want to dig further into that next time. So
thank you.
thank you. Bye.
Bye. Wildest episode ever.
Wildest episode. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's like a different energy with the video as well. Like I feel like our energy is heightened a bit.
You know why?
And I'm really
interested. Both performers.
Yeah, yeah, to an extent, yeah. And so I'm really curious to see how that kind of is that going to drive more engagement in the audio because we've got that video kind of energy going, or is that, I don't know.